All right, let's dive right into this explainer. For us walking the ancient paths, there's one massive, monumental question we all have to face today. We are going to examine the ultimate courtroom trial for believers. Did Yeshua actually pass the strict, uncompromising standard of the Deuteronomy 13 test? For those of us who guard the mitzvot and look for the appearing of the Messiah, the integrity of our entire faith really hinges on this very question. Did he lead Israel away from the Torah, or did he lead us deeper into the heart of the Father? Today, we're going to lay out the evidence step by step. We'll look at the divine standard, the charges of lawlessness, the true identity of the Most High, dive into the Sabbath controversy, and wrap up with the true promised prophet.
So, part 1, the divine standard. We've got to establish Elohim's supreme law.
Deuteronomy 13, verses 1 through 3, this is literally the silver bullet for anti-missionaries, right? It's that incredibly strict line-in-the-sand warning to Israel. Do not listen to anyone who tries to lead you away from Yahweh's commandments. It completely shatters the idea that a miracle alone proves someone is speaking the truth. Okay, so here's the breakdown. A false prophet has a very specific MO. First, they perform a sign or a wonder, but then, and this is the kicker, they use that miraculous influence to entice Israel to chase after other gods, or to push Israel to break the mitzvot. Think about it. If Yeshua had actually told Israel, hey, stop keeping the Sabbath, or go ahead and eat swine, or told them to worship some Greek deity, boom, false prophet for sure. But did he actually do that?
Well, when we strip away all those centuries of man-made traditions and just look at the raw evidence, it's kind of mind-blowing. Yahshua didn't fail this test. He actually defined it. Let's look at exactly how.
Which brings us to part 2, fulfilling, not destroying. We need to tackle this charge of lawlessness head on.
Yahshua's absolute best defense? It's his own seminal teaching in Matthew chapter 5. He directly addresses the Torah and explicitly says he did not come to destroy the law. He tells us that not a single jot or tittle, those tiny, tiny little Hebrew markings, will ever pass from it. But we really have to grasp what those words actually meant back in the first century.
Here's where it gets fascinating. We're dealing with a first-century Hebraic idiom here. When Yeshua talked about destroying the law, he wasn't saying the law was being abolished or thrown in the trash. In that culture, to destroy the Torah meant to interpret it incorrectly, to lead people astray. And to fulfill it, that meant to interpret and perform it perfectly. So, by the strict standard of Deuteronomy 13, a false prophet says, hey, forget the law. But Yeshua? He's saying the exact opposite. He's saying, I came to show you how to actually live this out flawlessly. Moving on to part 3, no unknown gods. Let's talk about the true identity of the Most High. Now, you'll hear critics argue that the whole word-made flesh idea is just some foreign, pagan deity concept. But wait, look at the actual Tanakh. It is completely packed with the messenger of Yahweh, someone who bears the divine name and even accepts worship. We literally see this in Exodus 23, with Abraham in Genesis 18, and Manoah in Judges 13. It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that Yahweh manifesting his Shekinah, his divine presence, is 100% native to the Torah. Yahshua wasn't pointing to some new, unknown entity. He was pointing straight to the Father. As he says right here in John 5, he came in his Father's name. His entire mission, the whole shebang, was to strip away the man-made traditions that had completely clouded the Father's heart and to restore the pure, unadulterated worship of Yahweh. No foreign deities here, just the absolute authority and name of the Holy One of Israel. All right, part 4, the Sabbath controversy. It's time to dissect this major historical accusation. We've got to face the elephant in the room. Did Yahshua actually break the Sabbath? Because let's be real, if he broke the Sabbath, he completely fails the Deuteronomy 13 test. Game over. So, what does the historical and scriptural record actually tell us? Well, here's the absolute game changer. Yahshua never ever broke the Sabbath as Elohim defined it back in Exodus 20. Not once. What he did break were the takanot. These were the ultra-strict, man-made legal rulings and traditions of the Pharisees. They were extra heavy burdens piled on top of the people and completely, totally separate from the actual eternal commands of Yahweh. Think about when Yahshua healed people on the Sabbath. He was operating flawlessly under the Hebraic legal principle of pikuach nefesh. That's the totally grounded scriptural understanding that saving a life, doing good, restoring health, all of that supersedes the strict resting restrictions of the Sabbath. Even later rabbis agreed with this.
Yahshua was just showing everybody that the true original intent of the Sabbath is life, rest, and restoration, not bondage.
In Mark chapter 3, he basically turns to his critics and asks, is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath days or to do evil, to save life or to kill? By throwing that brilliant legal question right back at them, he totally proved he was honoring both the spirit and the letter of Elohim's eternal command. He wasn't violating the Sabbath, guys. He was living it exactly as Yahweh always intended. And that brings us to our final section, Part 5, the true promised prophet. Let's deliver the final verdict. So let's put these two legal standards side by side. On one hand, Deuteronomy 13 defines the false prophet. That's the guy who speaks his own words just to lead you into lawlessness, dragging you away from Yahweh. But on the flip side, Deuteronomy 18 defines the true prophet, the one who speaks only the Father's words to bring you right back to the covenant. Remember, Moses specifically promised in Deuteronomy 18 that this true prophet was coming. He'd be raised up from among their brethren, and he would perfectly mirror the authority of Yahweh by speaking absolutely nothing except what Yahweh commanded him. And wow, does Yeshua perfectly match this criteria? I mean, just listen to his own words in John 7. My doctrine is not mine, but his that sent me. He is constantly, over and over, emphasizing his absolute, complete submission to the Torah of the Father. He never once claimed to be bringing some new religion or a new set of rules. He was perfectly echoing the Father. Far from leading Israel into lawlessness or pushing them off the path, Yahshua actually magnified the law. In Matthew 5, he teaches that even a lustful thought is adultery and holding on to hatred is murder. He narrowed the path. And when they asked him about the greatest commandment, he upheld the absolute oneness of Yahweh by quoting the Shema straight from Deuteronomy 6. You guys, a false prophet would never, ever emphasize the supreme authority of Yahweh like that. Now we know the Torah acknowledges that false prophets can do little tricks and perform signs. So the miracles all by themselves aren't the ultimate proof. Miracles have to confirm the word. And Yahshua's miracles, giving sight to the blind, raising the dead, they specifically matched the very prophetic credentials laid out in Isaiah 35. His works completely glorified Yahweh and proved, without a doubt, he was indeed the prophet like unto Moses. So let's pull all these threads together. Yahshua is literally unique in all of human history. Why? Because he claimed to be the Messiah while fiercely, and I mean fiercely, upholding the eternal validity of every single yod and tittle of the Torah. He didn't change the destination. Instead, he became the ultimate bridge for the lost sheep of the house of Israel to finally come home and return to the covenant. So knowing that Yahshua absolutely did not fail the Deuteronomy 13 test and actually exposed the failure of those who tried to use the Torah as a weapon of exclusion, we've got to ask ourselves one final defining question. The word of Yahweh made flesh pass the test perfectly. He is the one protecting us from false prophets who claim the law is dead. So are you ready to follow him back into perfect obedience to the Father? I want you to really chew on that as you continue to walk the ancient paths. Hallelujah, and thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.